right, let's do it. Good afternoon. If it's Monday, it must be Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts, the podcast brought to you by Ruby Williams Shivers, the author and also creator of this particular program. The producer for the program is Sheila Brown Bird, and the consultants are Lulu Salvador and Juanita McClure. And I'm your host, Terry Benjamin. Also, Norman Bradley. He is the owner and the engineer for this particular program. And we welcome you, our villagers. And really this Monday is very special because it is the Monday before the beginning of the Kwanzaa celebration, which is from December the 26th to January the 1st. And this was actually created by Malana Ron Karanga on the West Coast in 1966. I graduated from high school in 1968, and I was privileged to actually celebrate that particular celebration with Imam Baraka. At that time, I was part of his organization, and we would have what we call every Sunday a soul session, the time that artists from Newark would come in. We would have drummers, we would have musicians, we would have singers and poets. And this was every Sunday, and I got a chance to really become immersed in Black culture and really living the Afrocentric life. So I've been involved with this for quite some time in terms of just being about the business of being Black as opposed to being Negro or anything else. And I really look forward to having you join me this afternoon because we're going to be talking about some very interesting things. For the past few weeks, I've been talking about where do we go from here? Where do we go from here and what direction we should go into? And this is where we need our experts, people who have studied where we've come from so we know where we're going. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest because we got a lot to talk about. And I know he has a lot to say to us, have a lot of questions, and he has a lot of answers. And I really welcome my brother from Essex County College, Dr. Akil Kafani. Brother, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right, we ready to rock and roll. Before I begin,
all right.
I just want to say to you, okay, I don't want to embarrass you, but I've known you for a long, long time. And
yes, sir.
And the thing with you've always been consistent, okay? You've been consistent in your walk. You've been consistent in your talk, and you've been consistent in your byproducts. Because again, you are one. When we talk about living the Afrocentric life, that's you, brother. That's you.
I share. So
let me welcome you in.
That I do strive to do, brother. I do strive to do.
And you do it. So here you go. Oh, I'm sorry. That's our theme song. Again, just to give you something to think about, something to listen to. Yes. Okay, there you go. So again, this is Dr. Akil Kafani, and he's director of the Africana Institute and associate professor of sociology at Essex County College. And my brother, I guess the first thing that I really want to get into with you is we talk about sociology, and it defines sociology, the study of social life, social change, and social causes and consequences of human behavior. Now that's the definition of sociology. But my question to you, my first question, is, if is there an African sociology?
That's a wonderful question. Nobody's ever asked me that, but I'm glad that you are. And today is the day.
Yes, sir. This will be a different type of interview.
Yeah, right. So we there isn't per se a African sociology in the way that we would like to really kind of see it. But I believe that some of the things that I've been working on over the years have led us in that direction. So, there is a very specific, so there's people who write African sociology. I'm a member of the Association of Black Sociologists and have been a life member for many years. And so we've got some stalwarts in the organization who've been doing a lot of things, right? However, when we talk about looking at African organizations, particularly academic scholarly organizations, the kind of main organization that I refer to is ABSI, Association of Black Psychologists. I think they've done such a dynamic job of incorporating an African thought into psychology that we don't really see in sociology. So many years ago, I started writing a book called Africana Sociology. Oh, wow. I never finished it. Okay. So it's maybe a project that I do somewhere in the future, but but it's still on the table. So there's been books out called Black Sociology, but no one has really developed an African-centered thought that is built on something like Africology, like Africana studies, Kawaida, all of the great work that was done by Joe White and Thomas Parham, Wade Nobles, all those folks, younger brother, Adisa, well, we're both not as young as we used to be, but a friend of mine, Adisa Jamu. So we all have been doing stuff, and they have been obviously way before me. But that thought process was very, very deeply African, looking at how Africans came into their thought processes and ways of doing and being. So I incorporated that to a certain extent into a book I wrote called The Hidden Debate, which looks at affirmative action in South Africa and the United States. And what I was trying to do in that book, I think affirmative action was kind of it was a tool to help me to get to the thoughts, but it really showed me that sociologists have failed in many ways to address a lot of the social problems of the world in which we live, because we mostly focus on, or should I say they, mostly focus on problems from the perspective of them, of the negative version. So they talk about inequality instead of equality. They talk about injustice instead of justice. They talk about oppression instead of freedom. And I understand that to a certain extent. However, when do we ever move to spend time to talk about what justice is? What does it look like? How do sociologists begin to use the tools of sociological analysis to get to a thought process that helps us to understand what it means to be free? Right? Because I talked about the failure in being free and why we didn't get there because our analysis was flawed. And part of it is that we don't go to an African worldview. We talk about Africans and Europeans, but we really never get to the idea of saying that their worldview is different. And so I use like Maremba Ani in this book. I used Du Bois. I used even some of the African and European philosophers to talk about our ways of doing, thinking, and being. And that's kind of the thrust of where I think that some of the things that need to be said that haven't really been said the way they need to be.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. And I think what happens a lot of times, with our people, you talk about a worldview. Very few people have that worldview. And then one of the things that I want to talk to you about, and I think this is going to sort of push our discussion further into where we should be going as a people. One of the things that I admire about you is the fact that you not only talk the talk, but you walk the walk. When you talk about worldview, you have traveled outside of the United States. You have traveled in Africa. And my question for you is, how has that expanded your worldview of things? How has that expanded you?
You know, I tried my first trip to Africa that I had attempted to make was when I was an undergrad.
Oh, okay.
And I was applying for, I was at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I applied for a study abroad program to Kenya. And they said to me that, you know, I said in there, I want to get back to my cultural history. And they said that, you know, that language was problematic and that it might cause some kind of political, they didn't use this word, but I'll use it, consternation or some tensions. And they asked me to rewrite it. And I was perturbed, but I said, you know what? I can do whatever I want once I get there.
That's right.
So I rewrote the thing and they still denied me. And then I was that, you know, just fed into, and I wrote a paper on white supremacy and PWIs and how they are controlling mechanisms, especially back in the 80s when this happened, mid 80s.
Okay.
And so I was determined to go to Africa, but didn't go until actually that was in, I think, like 88 or 88. You know, it's probably 87 or 88. And then I didn't go until 1994.
Okay.
And so when I went in 94, I went to South Africa, and I was in grad school at the time, and my advisor sent me there, who was a Pan-Africanist, who sent me there to do some research on demographic research, and I was there for a month. Okay. You know, so I had a wonderful experience. Now, when I first then I went back in 95, and I was there for 6 months. I won a fellowship, and I was there for 6 months. So I studied at the University of Pretoria, and to me that was probably either that or another trip. I can't remember. I've been there many times.
Yeah, of course.
But it was a pinnacle moment because when I got there, it was the African Moot Court competition.
Wow.
And so you had all of these African students who were studying to be lawyers from all over the continent in South Africa.
Wow,
and I didn't do anything related to research that first week and a half that they were there. I went and hung out with all these brothers and sisters, made good connections. And,
beautiful.
you know, there wasn't a whole lot of email at the time, so we actually had to write back and forth for a little while. So we were writing back and forth to different folks in Eritrea, Ethiopia, other places, and it was just a beautiful experience to me, and it opened my eyes. And the real thing that opened my eyes, though, was these three young brothers, really, really young. They were like in, I don't even know if they were in college yet. If they were like in their first year or so. Maybe they were like in their first year of college, and they challenged me. They said, "Oh, you know, because we were hanging out and talking and having a good time, and this was after I was there during the 6 month period, studying Zulu, Afrikaans, and Southern African history and culture. So Ingi Kulum isi Zulu kan, and I speak a little Zulu.
All right.
And Praten verstaan de Biki Afrikaans, which was the oppressor's language.
I love it.
So they said a word to me that I hadn't heard. They said, "Oh, do you know Ubuntu?" I was like, "No, I don't know."
I don't know
it. You know, maybe I heard it, but I don't really know what it means. And they said, "Oh, you gotta know this concept. You gotta, you know, this is such an important." I was like, "Okay. So what does it mean?" And they didn't. Either they intentionally didn't tell me, or they didn't have the articulation of it, and they knew the essence of it, what it meant, but not the translated. You know, verbalizing it, if you will, right? And so then when I started doing some research, and it became such an important part about everything that I do.
Wow.
because Ubuntu it's not just a word in South Africa. Really, that word spans throughout the continent, but in different, obviously different words. But the essence of it is, and
Mhm.
it speaks to the worldview of Africans,
Okay.
and so it kind of means we are, therefore I am, therefore we are,
Mm.
right? But it actually comes from another proverb, a Sutu proverb,
Mhm.
which is another group in South Africa.
Mhm.
And there's a proverb that says "moto ke moto kabato,"
Okay.
and what that means is that the essence of my humanity is attested to by how humanely I treat my neighbors
Oh,
and how humanely they treat me
oh,
back.
I love that. I love that. That is beautiful. That's beautiful. Let me ask you a question. Now, before you came to Essex County College, you were teaching, I'm sure, elsewhere. But when you came to Essex County College, was there Africana Studies program before you came?
So there's two components. As you see behind me, I
Mhm.
run the Africana Institute for
Mhm.
now. It'll be 20 years
Oh, wow.
uh, in 2026. I'll
Okay.
be running the institute for 20 years, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. There was a director before me, and that started in 2001.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
so the institute has been here since 2001. Linworth Gunther was the
I
first
remember
director,
him. Yeah. Yeah.
and however, there was also a push for the Africana Studies major.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there was another brother who had been working to get the Africana Studies major pushed over for many, many years. And when I became the director of the Africana Institute
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
2006, I said, you know what, I'm going to, Brother Nikki Chikunta, I
Okay.
told him, I said, I'm going to help you let's do whatever we got to do this. So I, helped him. We rewrote some stuff and
Hmm.
restructured it
Hmm.
and got it submitted, and it went through.
Wow.
And so I'm not taking the credit for it. That's him. I helped on something he had already
Right. Right.
developed,
Yeah. Okay.
and maybe I had the relationships to help push it through as well. So
Hmm.
that's maybe where I came in.
Okay.
But so that was in 2006.
Hmm.
The first class we had graduated in 2007.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
So there was two students, and when we had our first what was it? Our first Pan African Drum Fest. That was in 2007, and I have two students who graduated with degrees in Africana Studies.
That's beautiful, and I'm going to take you back to when you started teaching, and this is going to make you laugh because you're going to say, "Well, how did he know this?" But a little birdie told me that when you were teaching, one of the things, in terms of your pedagogy, in terms of your art of teaching, you would have the students write poems. Are you still doing that?
Yes. Still doing that. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now,
Some of them love it and some of them hate it.
yeah. Well, yeah. That's what they told me. That's what they told me.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
what I want to get to is that because you are an Afrocentric life, you know who Nikki Giovanni is. You know that she passed, and it's so funny because people talk about Nikki Giovanni, which I love. I mean, I met her several times through Imama Baraka's organization, and she died at 81. Sister Sonia Sanchez, I met her. As a matter of fact, I had her come out to Union County College. Make a long story short, I invited her out to what had happened. As a professor, one of the perks is that sometimes you get free books in the mail. And one
Mm-hmm.
day I got a book of Sonia Sanchez, and I was so excited. First of all, I knew her to get the book, and this was like in maybe '86 or whatnot. And I was so excited. And what I did is that I called the number in the book, and I figured I'd get her assistant. I got Sonia
Mm-hmm.
Sanchez, and I was so
Wow.
excited that Sister Sanchez, I'm so happy to talk to you. And I said, look, can you come to Union County College in Cranford, New Jersey? I said, I can't pay you as much as you probably usually get, but what I can do is you can sell your books. Make a long story short, I invited her out. It was in the winter. And I went to the English department chairperson. I said, Dr. Will, Sonia Sanchez is coming to Union County College. And he asked me, and this is no lie, he said, who is Sonia Sanchez? I said, and I was naive at that time because I figured if you know literature, you know literature. And he had no idea who Sonia Sanchez was. And he said, well, yeah, Terry, you're excited about her, but we don't know what can you do this? Could you come to our next department meeting and tell us who Sonia Sanchez is? I said, well, I guess I could do that. My brother, I came in with a stack of books like this, and for 30 minutes I just went to town on Sonia
Right, right.
Sanchez, because again, I mean, the thing that kills me is that you're in these institutions and they talk about they're going to teach literature, but they only taught us teach us more portion of that. So we have Nick Giovanni, who passed at age 81, and Sonia Sanchez is still alive, and she's
Yes.
91. And my question to you is, why did you use poetry in that way? What was your purpose?
Well, so first of all, I mean, I studied poetry as an undergrad. I've done lots of poetry. I used to do poetry readings almost weekly when I lived in Philadelphia.
Wow, okay.
And I've been writing since I was an undergrad, right back in the 80s.
Okay.
And I have published in magazines and stuff poetry. And one day I'm going to do a poetry book also.
Please do that. Do that.
Yes, yes. And then I studied under Lucille Clifton.
Oh, man,
She was a professor
yes.
at Essex. At University of California, Santa Cruz, and I took an independent a small seminar class. I think there was like 4 of us in the class with just us and Lucille Clifton. It was beautiful.
Whoa. What a privilege.
And and I've been around poets all my life. So Amiri Baraka, I've been to a lot. I've had him at the college many times. I did his last interview with him before he passed was on my TV program.
Oh my goodness.
I've done Sonia Sanchez. We've had it we did a program joint with Rutgers University one year about Gil Scott Heron, and Sonia Sanchez was a part of that program.
I remember that.
And we were ABSI. I'm not ABSI. Association of Black Sociologists. We had Sonia Sanchez come one year to be one of our speakers. So I've been around her and other poets, Haki Matabuti, a whole wide array of beautiful African poets, and I just love the energy and spirit of poetry. But I actually got to poetry in my class very differently, though. So I got to it because I was studying critical race theory, which is not what you hear on the news, but is a whole kind of sociological, really these were lawyers who were writing about it. Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell, and a bunch of other folks writing about critical race theory.
Yes.
And in doing critical race theory, part of what they did was to incorporate storytelling into their legal analysis, because they were dealing with courts, really with juries that didn't understand the body of people or the stories that were in front of them.
Okay.
So what they did was they transformed it into telling stories and used storytelling as a tool to win cases, right? And so I said, well, how do I get students to relate to sociology differently than they may have in any other class? Yes. And I said, I was teaching a class. The reason I got this is because I was teaching a class on race relations, and we were using the book on critical race theory.
Okay.
And I was thinking about the storytelling process, and I said, well, poetry writing is storytelling.
It is.
It's a truncated version of it, though.
Right.
And so that's what I've been doing in all of my classes for, I don't know, 20 years or so now, is that they do poems to do truncated storytelling, and it enables students who may not be the best writers or may not be the best analysts to use a different part of their brain to think differently, to be able to get at sociological and or current affairs or other kind of heavy narratives that we're looking at. And so that's how I got to it. And it's been beautiful. I have them, I shock them sometimes, and I don't tell them that they're going to read them in class, and they have to get up in class and read their poems. So that part is always fun to me.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it, though, I know for myself, because when I came to Union County College, I would use music videos in the class and also in poetry. And I remember I was talking to one student, and I said, we're going to do some poetry in class. He said, I hate poetry. I said, do you like rap music? I love rap music. Rap music is poetry. Because then I introduced him to KRS-One and that classic song, Poetry, where he talks about, in about 4 seconds, a teacher will begin to speak. And then he goes into what he's doing. So I think, again, talk about where we're going. I think what we have to do, we have to start thinking differently. We have to make a pivot to get away from this Euro-centric thinking to Afrocentric thinking.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, now you've been to Africa. Is that a viable avenue for us? A lot of people say, I want to get out of here. I want to go to Africa. Is that viable? Is that realistic?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not only viable and realistic, it's being done, right? There's lots of Africans from the U.S. and other parts of the diaspora who are moving to the continent, and not just to Ghana. A lot of people know about Ghana, but there's a lot of people moving to Tanzania, to South Africa, to some to Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and other places. And so then there's Africans moving all over the place, and I'm with groups of people who are talking about it. And there's African Americans who are setting up whole, I wouldn't call them villages, but really that's what they're doing. But they're setting up like buying land and building townhome communities, and putting up whole places for people to buy themselves, and to be able to do. So there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, because again, I mean, we talk about that. A lot of people don't think that is realistic. But like you said, I mean, see, we have options. We have options that we don't realize. And again, a lot of us, we have the example of Brother Stevie Wonder, he has the dual citizenship, so he can come back and forth. But many people say that, I don't have this kind of money. Is it expensive to live in Africa?
I mean, some places are expensive. I've been to Angola a few times. It's kind of expensive there. Moving to any major city around the world is probably expensive, right? So we think about Africa and we think about rundown or primitive or this, that, and the other. But if you go to most major cities in Africa, they look like New York, right? They are developed. They got skyscrapers. They got the whole 9 yards. And if you think about a city of Lagos in Nigeria, it's one of the biggest cities in the world, most populous. And so you're talking about millions of people in cities like that. And so those exist all over the place. And there's lots of places, and it's not just there. It's people going to the islands to move permanently. And they're 500 and something this year. Ghana had a new thing with the president, and they had 500 Africans from the diaspora, not just the United States, from Ghana. I mean, from South America, Central America, and other places, who all got their citizenship. Over 500 this year. And it was 100 and something a year or two ago. And so then that's been increasing. There's another country, I think it was either Tanzania or Botswana, someplace else, just did a whole thing on allowing for citizenship. So there's a movement. And people are getting land, either it's being donated or whatever, or it's being sold at reasonable prices. Now, some people have conflict, but they're like, well, there's the land is a 99-year lease. Because in some regards, so for some people that's a problem. But when I think about it, if you think historically, who does the land belong to? The land belongs to the creator. That's right. You don't own land.
No, you don't.
And so if you really understand land, that you understand that your use of it and occupation of it is a steward of that land, and that you occupy it and have it temporarily until you, your family, or somebody else becomes in possession of it and uses it. And we could all be gone and the land would still be there.
That's right. Right. And the thing about it is, again, it goes to the whole question of the Nguzo Saba, the seven principles, and self-determination. Now, it's funny to me, but people don't understand, like when Nikki Giovanni did her first book in 1966, I believe, she self-published that book. And then she developed her own publishing company, Nick Tom, her and her son. Even with Sonia Sanchez, many of these people were like we talk about Haki Matabuti, and it's so funny because I remember the first book that I read by Haki Matabuti was He wrote a book and was by this guy named Don L. Lee. Who's Don L.
Mm-hmm.
Lee? But the thing, it was from Third World Press, and he's still publishing books on the Third World Press. And my question to you is, do we need Hollywood? Do we need Simon and Schuster? Do we need these companies to make our films and publish our books? I mean, what is the alternative? Or maybe there is the alternative that we don't know about.
Well, there are many African publishing houses, and and there's people doing film production.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part of what we need to look at is Nollywood.
Okay.
Nollywood is the film production system in Nigeria.
Yes.
So you have Hollywood, Nollywood, and Bollywood, which is in India.
Right.
But the thing is that it's about the Nigerian piece is that theirs may not be as quote unquote polished as Hollywood, but they have product, lots of product. Lots and lots and lots of films.
Yes.
And they're good films. Some of them get good storytelling. Some of them are, maybe you would consider B. Maybe some of their animation or their magic stuff is kind of hokey, maybe. But it's still enjoyable. I enjoy it for what it is. I don't have to have a $1 billion budget to have a good film and have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true for our writing and other things, is that we spend so much time working on thinking about what does it mean to be perfect. I'm a strong victim to this because when I used to do desktop, I used to have a desktop publishing company, and I used to do desktop publishing when I worked for the University of California, Irvine. And if I could see with my eye if anything was a pica off. Now, a pica is the square dot where you're looking at, if there's one dot below or above something, then I would not publish it.
Oh my goodness!
Right? I mean, and the people who worked for me, they used to have a fit because they're like, nobody can see that. I said, I'm looking right at it. You're off a pica. You got to adjust the line and the text. And so I would spend time. I would make sure that it would be adjusted, and then I'd be like, that looks good now.
No, we wasted all this time.
Right.
We missed our deadline.
And I'm not saying there's nothing to the value of that, but at the same time, I just think that we've got to think about that. When I wrote the book, The Hidden Debate, I came to the conclusion that there was still stuff that could have been fixed, but I had to say that I was done.
And let it go. Let it go.
Done and send it out. Right. Yeah. And it's done well, and so I'm happy for what it became or what it is, and so I just think we need more like that. I'm still struggle with that, so I'm not saying that I've overcome it. It's still a struggle, I still, but sometimes I do just sometimes with danger now though, because like we use Google Voice and you say blah 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 blah, and you don't look at it, and you look and you send it, and you're like, oops, It's okay when you do that on WhatsApp because you can recall it, but on text message you're in trouble.
well, that's true. But again, like going from where do we go from now? I mean, I see some really good examples of where we should go. For example, KBLA. I start my morning listening to WKBLA. So again, it's 9 o'clock here, it's 6 o'clock there, and I start with Dominic LaPrima, who is the daughter of Imam Baraka. And then I go from there, I go to Tavis Smiley, and I just continue through my day. But the thing that I want to ask you is, in terms of institutions, I mean, in terms of like KBLA, Tavis Smiley owns the building, okay? Here we have WBAI. They're always asking for funding, they have these drives, and we have also WBGO. Now, in terms of looking at those things, I mean, is that direction that we should be headed? Should we do we need to own the production, the mechanism?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, no, we need to own. It's like if you listen to the sister did a video who owns Uncle Nearest.
Okay.
And in her thing, she said she's moving to another whole thing. She went to France and bought the vineyard for Champagne, one of the largest vineyards for
What? Oh
Champagne.
my
She
goodness!
bought the
Right.
production. She bought all the rights. She said, own if you're going to do something, own the copyrights,
Yeah.
own the technology, own the
Ashe,
building,
ashe.
own everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, and I'm in agreement with that. That's what, here's a good example.
Hmm.
Right here in
Hmm.
West Orange, I'm on the board for the West Orange, for the Black Inventors Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And we are buying a building,
Oh,
a
I
five and a
love that.
half
I
acre
love that. I love
lot
that. Yeah.
that is a place that used to be called, or still is to this point,
Hmm.
called the Mayfair Farms, where
Okay.
they had a lot of public political events up here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to own that building and build
Right.
behind it another edifice that will house lots of
Oh,
the
oh,
museum works. And so
yeah.
right here in New Jersey, there'll be a state of the art, African owned
Okay.
museum.
Hmm.
We're going to have a production studio in there.
Okay.
We're going to have
Okay.
a theater in there. We're going to have, they're already in the building that we're taking over. There is like a convention hall. So we're going
Yes.
to have
Yes.
rental space for
Okay.
people to have events.
Oh man,
And we're
beautiful,
going to be
beautiful.
bringing kids in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's going to be a restaurant in there.
Oh man.
So all of these things in a prime location right off the 280,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, and on top of the hill, the way that the restaurant is
Wow.
being designed now, it'll be you'll be able to see New York
Wow.
and the other side
Uh-huh.
from
Uh-huh.
the upper floor of the building
Hmm. Hmm.
where the restaurant will be, which is going to be fabulous.
Oh, this that
So
yeah.
long as all the
Oh
permits and
man.
everything
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
through,
Yeah.
is going to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
powerful.
Well, that is beautiful because a longtime friend of mine, a good friend of mine, at one time, well, he's a barber. He had his own barber shop, but what he did, he brought the building. So he and his wife lived upstairs, and the barber shop was downstairs. And
Yeah.
again, it was very self-contained. And I think that what we need to do is get our minds to the point where we own the means of production. We own the means of doing the things that we want to do. Because again, it's a African proverb that suggests that the one who is playing the instrument sort of names the tune. And the
Right.
thing is that we have to understand that if we want things to happen and whether we want to, we have to like really own the means of production. Many years ago, I about for 5 years I did call a festival called Churches Making Movies, because what I found out is that there was churches that were actually making movies. And so what we would do, we would invite people to Jersey to premiere these movies. And we had film showings and we had other different things going on as well. But my point is that we can do this. We can make books. We can make movies. We can make documentaries. We can do all that. And the thing is that, and my question to you is, how do we teach our young people to respect it? Because I'm feeling a lot of times is a disconnect, because we have all the examples of the Nikki Giovanni's and the Sonia Sanchez, the Imamo Barakas and Haki Mahabutis. What do these kids have, and where are they going?
So I think it's mixed. I don't want to suggest that they have nothing, because
Mm-hmm.
they actually are doing some powerful stuff. If you look at a lot of these young folks now,
Okay.
and I watch some of them on, I guess it's Instagram. I forget which one I have.
Okay.
I don't think I have Twitter. I think it's Instagram. And they are figuring out how to navigate taxes, how to navigate setting up estates, how
Okay.
to transfer wealth,
Mm-hmm.
how to do a lot of things that we may not have the skill set to do.
Okay. Okay. I
And
understand.
I've
Yeah.
taken some classes with some of them, who are
See that?
younger than me,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they are some sharp folks. What we don't have with many of them, though, is that they're not African centered.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So
That makes a difference.
I think that that is the other side of it, because I don't think they see value in it because they haven't experienced oppression like we have.
Okay.
And so, and they maybe haven't studied it. So their understanding is not the same as the person you said in the beginning, opening up, talking about the Negro, but they're just ill-informed and ignorant of the things. So I think movies like, that's why I show in my classes every year, movies like Sankofa.
Oh, yes.
Because if you have not experienced the pain and sufferings of our ancestors, it's hard to relate to them.
Yes.
In South Africa, they're having the same thing. You know, people don't know anything. These young folks don't know anything about the 60s. They don't know anything about, many of them don't know about apartheid.
Is that something? Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So these are things, that's 30 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
1994. When I got to South Africa in June or July, the election was in April.
Wow. Okay.
So if you think about kids who are 18 now, that's almost, you know, that's almost like saying 15 years. So it's 15 years prior to their coming into being, right? And so then that it's very distant from them. So when they experience oppression that is continuing in South Africa, they don't necessarily relate it to apartheid. They relate it to some other kind of thing going on, because then they see a lot of successful Africans. They got an African president. You know, it's like having Obama here as president, but that didn't change much, right? For the people. And so it's when you have a lot of elected officials and people who have money, right? So they have people who have money who are Africans. We have people who have money who are Africans.
That's right.
And so then you see this, it creates a cognitive dissonance. And so you're not understanding the oppressive nature of the social system, because Europeans are still in control in South Africa.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Europeans are still in control in the United States.
Yes.
And in many places on the African continent and around the world. And so their ideas and their imposition of their ways of doing and thinking and being seem like they are universalistic, because that's what they present.
That's
right? That equality. Everybody's just, we want equality.
That's right.
Justice for all, the American way. Yeah, but you didn't write that for me, and you still don't mean that for me, right? And here I am, somebody who ran for Congress, but I understood. Maybe that's why I didn't get in, because I understood what the system was and the doctrines were, and understand the flaws in our analysis about them.
That's a beautiful thing, and it's so funny because I want to tell you, every time we do this program, every Monday, 9 out of 10 times we're relating to you, and because what you did, you spoke to Queen Ruby Shivers, and you had a conversation, and she said, we're just so brainwashed, and you said, no, we're not brainwashed, we're brain dirty. And she always brings it up. And for those who don't know, what do you mean by brain dirty?
Well, even the idea of brainwashing speaks to our brainwashing, right? Because washing means to clean.
Okay.
And if we think about the idea of that, when somebody says you've been brainwashed, that's not only cognitive dissonance, that's flipping your brain and confusing you. That very statement is confusing you.
Take back your
because
mind.
we've been infused with all the crazy, mixed up, dirty thinking that's been imposed upon us by oppressive systems, and those systems that have individuals operating it, that those systems are dirtying our minds, and we need a good brainwashing. Let me get some what do you call this stuff? Some Florida water and cleanse myself. A little bit of sage. I need to have brain cleansing and body cleansing. We need an overall cleanse. We need to flush out white supremacy from our thinking, because we actually we take the ideas of white supremacy and we become the propagators of them.
Whoa.
And we put them on in other kinds of ways, and a little bit to make us feel comfortable. And we are comfortable in the suicide that we take. It's like Malcolm X used to say, if you talking about war, and you said that we're not promoting war anymore. He says it's like sticking you with a knife and
Yeah. So we've been bamboozled. But let me ask you this question. Now, many of us, and maybe we lost our minds, and they said because we were thinking that we have a black woman who's running for president, and she's doing such a great job in such a short time of bringing all the people together, not just black and white, but Republican and Democrats and whatnot. And we cast our votes because we knew this would happen. Doctor, did we lose our mind for a second there? Was that ever realistic?
Yeah, we kind of lost our mind. Let me give me 2 seconds. My battery's about to die. Let me grab my cord real quick. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, yeah. Because again, this is my villagers. Spend some time with you. This is a discussion that we really need to have, because again, we meant well. We thought things would be a little different for us, and they were not. But again, there's no reason for us not to carry on. And in this discussion, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that maybe we need to start in a more Afrocentric, African-centered way of thinking. We don't have to go to Africa ourselves, but maybe we need to start thinking in terms of some African principles. Like, for example, if we talk about the 7 principles, like Monday would be Umoja. So again, we're trying to get you to maybe pivot your thinking and to think in a different way. They would not elect a white woman for president, so what made you think that they were going to select a black woman? But what say you, Doctor?
So I think that with Harris, and might I have supported her because I ran for Congress. I ran for Congress 3 times.
Okay.
In 2022 and this year in 24. Okay. And I ran as a write-in candidate when Donald Payne Jr. I wasn't going to run this year, but when Donald Payne Jr. passed and nobody was on the ballot, I'm like, I'm running. So I ran in the primary and got enough votes that I should have been on the ballot for November. So when they weren't putting me on it, I ended up having to sue the Secretary of State and all the county and officials throughout the 10th Congressional District. I lost that battle. But the point was that we need to hold folks accountable, and we need to be willing to step up to the plate to try and bring about some change. And so when Harris was going for the presidency, there were several problems. One, she had already said she didn't think she would need to do anything for African people, right? And so there was no issues. So I didn't see her someone who was going to, even though I had all these people, largely sisters and other folks who were for her, that I think that the problem to a great extent was the reason why I ran in 2020. And that is that the Democratic Party really has no mission. Their platforms are usually anti-Trump or anti-somebody else, but what are you running on? What is your agenda? What do you hope to do for the people other than be anti this and that, right? And so it's almost like sociology, right? They are focused on trying to distance themselves and critique somebody else, whether it's Donald Trump or not Biden, what is his name? Bush or somebody else. That becomes the whole shtick, right? And that's what it becomes. It becomes a shtick as opposed to a plan. Think about the Republicans. They have somebody, and he's even distancing himself from it. Trump is trying to suggest that, but they had somebody, some group of somebodies, write a plan called Plan 2025. So they had a plan, a comprehensive plan.
Yes.
as oppressive and racist and everything else that it is, they have a plan.
They have a plan.
Where is the Democratic plan?
Oh.
There isn't one. There's no plan.
No plan.
And if it's a plan, if we don't have some African-centered folks on it, it'll be the same as Project 2025. Oh, yes. So it will still be to our detriment. You see, so we've got to make sure that like Dr. J says all the time, is that it's a system, and we've got to see the system for what it is, and we have to come up with a systematic analysis and a systematic solution to that problem. And that's where the things I'm working on is developing systems. And largely I've been working on a lot of stuff, Pan-Africanist stuff. I've been traveling to the continent and to the South and Central America to deal with and build this whole Pan-Africanist movement and infrastructure.
Looking toward 2025, what are your plans at Essex County College for, I hate to say Black History Month, but now we call it that because this is what they understand. But is anything happens in Essex County College during that particular month?
Yeah, well, see, with me, since I've been the director, African History Month is every month of the year. So we've got something every month, right? So we start the year with, we didn't do it this year. We haven't done it in the last couple of years, probably since COVID. But we almost always used to start the year with a program called Bridging the Gap. And oftentimes we would work with the African History Commission, the African Commission for the city of Newark. And we had all kinds of programs related to that. And then we would have, in October, which we did do this year, we had the State of Black Writers Symposium. So the State of Black Writers Symposium this year, we had 3 panels of great authors. And then sometimes we'll have a health and wellness expo in November. This year, we're not doing it this year. It just was more work than I had the capacity to do. But we're getting ready for our art exhibition. We have pre-Kwanzaa every year in December, which we did. It was beautiful this year. We had a fabulous time. And so in January, we have our annual MLK memorial lecture. In February, we raise the flag in the first day or week, depending on what day the first falls on. We have a flag raising. And then we have the Garvey and Nkrumah lecture series. And I think I'm still figuring out what we're going to do this year, but I think we're going to partner with some folks, and it's Malcolm's 100th birthday this year in May. So I don't know if we're going to do it in May, do something in May, or we're going to just do it in February. I have to figure that piece out. And so those are, and then we have an exhibition. I have 2 exhibitions going up because I run the Africana Institute and the Center for Global Education and Experiences. So one is going to be in the hallways, and that's going to be an international exhibition. So we're going to invite folks to bring artworks from different cultures, whether it's Native American, Asian, African, Indian, all kinds of different things we'll have, and that is going to be in the hallways there. And then we have a African art exhibition that's going to be in the gallery. So those 2 things will be going on for probably January through March. And then we have the I still don't know if I'm going to do the Health and Wellness Expo. Probably not this year, just because it's just. But that for us, the reason some people say, well, why is the Africana Institute doing a health and wellness? Well, because we're doing a Health and Wellness Expo because we're looking at African-oriented health issues, challenges, and solutions.
Most important.
And so we bring African folks in to talk about health disparities, to talk about alternative modalities, to talk about holistic, as opposed to just allopathic health. And then we do in March, we have the African Spirituality Conference. We have that's going on this year as well. And we're finishing the lineup for that. And it's been beautiful over the years. And we look at all kinds of different ways of thinking about African spirituality. So we've had Yoruba practitioners, we've had Christians, we have Muslims, we had African Buddhist,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all kinds of ways of thinking about spirituality that Africans participate and practice. And so that's been a wonderful thing. And then we kind of end out the year with um, the Pan African Drum Festival, which is that's our two biggest events are the Pan African Drum Fest and Kwanzaa, and with the probably the Pan African Drum Fest has been the biggest in many years,
Yes.
and that's I moved that actually all the way to the summer because it used to be in May, and then we would end up with bad weather,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or I won't say bad, but challenging weather
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
an outdoor event.
Yeah.
And ever since I moved that outdoors, it's been even it. Well, actually, from the beginning, it was outdoors. The first time I did that was my first year there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was outdoors then. So yeah, so that's always been an outdoor event, but we've had outdoor and indoor components to it.
Right.
So this year, I think I don't even remember which year this is for it. It's maybe
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the 12th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but we've merged since Juneteenth has become an official holiday. We have a Juneteenth observance
Okay.
that we
Okay.
merge with it, and we do it so we observe Juneteenth early because Juneteenth falls obviously on the 19th, but
Mm-hmm.
the college is usually getting ready to
Yes.
close,
Yes. Of course.
and so then there's really no people around. So about a year ago, when the president, maybe 2 years ago, the president asked me to organize something for it. Yeah, maybe 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him that I said, yeah, I don't think doing it the date that it's falling on is going to be all that great
Right.
because
Right. Right.
there's not going to be any staff here. There's not going to be any students here, and it'll be a bust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we switched it out.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. Talking to you, I knew that I have a lot of questions that are unanswered. So we're going to call this part one. Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
You got to
sir.
come back with me and do part two. And when you come back, I want to get into some of your poetry. And
Okay. Okay.
and before I forget, you mentioned a TV show. You still have the TV show? Are you doing the TV show? And tell me a
Yes, yeah,
little
I
bit
haven't
about that.
taped in a little while, so they're running reruns. But it's called The Pulse, and it's on Verizon Files and
Okay.
Cablevision, and we have episodes on YouTube also. So yeah, The Pulse, and basically I interview folks who are different folks. Like I said, Amir Baraka I had on there. I
Yeah. Yeah.
had
Yeah.
the Queen of Fua,
Mm-hmm.
the brother who is the couple of chiefs have been on there,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of different folks.
Okay. Yeah, because again, again, we talked about poetry, and again, and you have archives. You have archives. I mean, I spend time, intimate moments with Imam Baraka. I mean, because like I said, I was there, and I was with the Spirit House Movers and whatnot. And one time, I had the privilege, the great privilege, with Imamu and Amina in the basement, and you have Gylan Kane over here, poetry. And you have Nathan C. Hurd, and you just had all these people that Sonia Sanchez, Nikki Giovanni. And I guess the point of this program is that, we got to start thinking differently. We got to think more Afrocentric, more African.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my brother, I'm going to give you I got a few more minutes. What would you like to say just in closing?
Yeah, I want to just say to the folks out there. First, I want to thank you and Mama Shriver's for inviting me back again. I
Yes.
enjoy being on the talk
You
show.
family, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think that it provides us a great opportunity to really kind of look into where we are headed as a people and carve out that space and be willing to be uncomfortable challenging the ideas of other folks.
Okay.
Right. So I get a lot of people who come to me and talk to me about, what do you think about, what's his name? This person or that person. I can't remember the name of the people now, but they want to, get me to chime in on, and I don't have a problem with having conversations about it. It's not about having to critique somebody or this, that, the other, but to find spaces for us to bring things to the table that are unique for what we do, but that we are not overly unique because
That's
we are
right.
building on the footsteps of our ancestors.
That's true.
I wrote a poem for Amiri Baraka many years ago, and that one I wrote. It was called Nation Time.
Do you remember any of that poem? Get a little snippet of it.
I don't remember it. I have to read it. I don't have it with
Yeah,
me right
yeah,
this second. But yeah, that poem was fun. I enjoyed it. And then we had just thinking about how do we think differently? Because I think this is the other thing we really need to start talking about is looking at Africans. I'm a part of this group on African futures. We've got to start talking about what AI, what crypto means for our
Oh
community.
man, that's
And I don't think we've spent
yes.
enough time talking about those
We
things
haven't.
because we keep wishing them away.
They're not going
And
away.
especially a lot of academics, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, the students are just cheating. We're gonna." I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, students have always been cheating, right? This may
Yeah.
help them to do so better.
Yeah, yeah.
They've always been so student and people have plagiarized for
Wow.
years.
Yes, true.
This is a
That's
game
true.
changer. We've got to think about this differently.
We
And
have
so
to.
I come up with different strategies for requiring my students to use AI as
Okay.
opposed to trying to have my binoculars on to see if they're using.
If they're cheating,
No,
yeah,
go
yeah.
out and use it, and let me tell you how to use it properly so that we can have other kinds of
Yeah.
discussions.
Well, my brother, again, as always, it's just great spending time with you. When I retired from Essex County College in 2020, I said one of the things I miss is walking through the hall and stopping by the Africana Studies Center, just walking in there, and see that.
Anytime, brother. Come on
Yeah, yeah.
back. Come on back.
Hey, look, hey, don't threaten me with a good time now, because
Yes, sir.
but again, my brother, thank you. And again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your wisdom. I thank you for your generosity. And we will have you back because you got a lot to
Okay.
teach us. And for my villagers, just want to say thank you. Sheila Bird, I'm watching. Rashida Johnson, give me 3 hearts. And Chester, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, So again, we have people who are watching us, who are getting these lessons and whatnot. And again, we want you to come back every Monday for Unapologetic Amateur, looking for experts, because we have our experts, but we need you to listen to them. So really, we want to thank you for tuning in today, and we will see you next Monday when we'll do it again. Thank you so much. And thank you, Doctor.